Suppose someone you know said, marijuana is great, and I'm going to give it to my brothers and sisters, my children, and my grandchildren. If you found that statement crazy, then at some level you agree that drugs cannot be accepted in civilized society. It attacks the morals and ethical clarity that supports responsible behavior. At the end of my speech, you will understand four of the reasons why it is so important to stop the legalization of drugs. I am going to focus on Washington State and Colorado using four examples. First, there is no governing body for regulation, increased addiction, the strength and the way it is presented for sale, the effect it has on our youth and resale. Marijuana is also known as cannabis or pot. In Colorado, you don't need to be a resident to buy marijuana, and there is not any type of registration system. Any adult is allowed to possess up to 1 ounce. Non-residents of Colorado are restricted to purchasing 7 grams in a single transaction. However, there is nothing illegal about visiting more than one store a day as long as you don't exceed the 1 ounce per person possession limit. As of July 8th, adults ages 21 and older can walk into one of Washington State's recently licensed pot shops, show their ID, and make a purchase from any array of legal products. To get the amendment passed, promises were made to the residents of Colorado that the marijuana market would be tightly monitored and strictly regulated, from seed to sale. There were promises of no underage youth involvement, no obvious advertisements to kids, no interstate trafficking, or black market criminal cartels running operations. All transactions would be regulated, controlled, and monitored, but none of the monitoring is actually happening. David W. Murray and John P. Walters, staff writers for the Weekly Standard, learned from a first-hand visit to Colorado this month there is enough clear evidence that each of those promises conditions are being violated without consequences. Cannabis growers are more like chemists than botanists. They can make certain compounds in the plant any strength they want, particularly Beta-9 thyrohydrocannabinol oil, or THC, which is what gets a person high. There are now at least 21 million drug users, and at least 7 million need treatment. However, how much could that rise? Well, there are now almost 60 million cigarette smokers and over 130 million who use alcohol each month. It is unrealistic to believe that legalization would not increase addictions by millions. Today, pot smokers find themselves getting high on less marijuana, increasing the chances for sudden changes as well as potential psychological disturbances. These drugs are illegal because of their intoxicating effects on the brain, damaging impact on the body, adverse impact on behavior, and potential for abuse. Their use threatens the health, welfare, and safety of all people and users and non-users alike. This leads to studying the strength of the drug and the way it is presented for sale. Today's pot, on average, is 2 times to 7 times more potential than pot in the 1970s, and experts say some can be as much as 20 or 30 times stronger. According to the National Institute of Drug Abuse at the University in Colorado, which opened its first marijuana retail stores in January and is only other states where recreational marijuana use is legal, bud tenders sell cannabis-infused products ranging from butter, ice cream, and chocolate bars to gummy candies, lemons, granola bars, sweet cakes, and beef jerky. Edibles are popular in Denver legal marijuana markets, in part because of consumers' health concerns over smoking. Others are swayed by laws that bar them from consuming marijuana in public. A pot cookie is far more discreet and less odorous than smoking a joint because of increasing concerns in Colorado about the uniformity, dosing, and safety of edible products. Washington state regulators hit the brakes on edibles. They also want to make sure psychoactive chemicals are spread evenly through an edible. Washington state has adopted several laws to help govern the new retail stores, including requiring marijuana-infused products to be stored behind a counter or other child restraint barriers, as well as banning cartoons on packaging. The state liquor board's main campaign is to keep the products out of the hands of children, particularly because many look like regular chocolate or gummy bears. Products cannot be visible from the street or the sidewalk. In-store advertising is strictly limited, and security cameras are required. In Washington state, it took a long time to get the stores open, and they accomplished this by bringing in non-profiters and opportunists into legal commerce with strict rules and stiff taxes. It did this with public input and a relatively open process, and it did this being mindful of the impact of children. Our children are legally being exposed, according to the National Institute of on Drug Abuse of Mississippi State of Pharmacy. The marijuana smoked 40 years ago was anywhere from 0.74% to 1.67% THC. By 2008, that number had jumped up to 8.5%. There are reports of some samples clocking in at 37% THC. There is a real danger to our children by making cookies, gummy bears, and other sweets that look like candy. The widespread use of cannabis has also increased the prevalence of cannabis in the general driving population. Overall, 6.8% of drivers tested positive for THC. The prevalence in young drivers aged 16 to 20 years were even higher at 15.2%. Moreover, 13% of drivers involved in fatal accidents were positive for THC. High rates of THC among drivers poses a serious problem. The association between percent cannabis use and cognitive decline was significantly greater for people who began using cannabis before compared with after 18 years old. Cannabis seems to have long-lasting negative consequences on a broad spectrum of cognitive abilities, perhaps being consistent cannabis use during adolescent affects how your brain develops. One public school administrator said that he is attending increasing number of private disciplinary hearings for 12-year-olds who are daily marijuana users. Denver is full of marijuana that is advertised as having a potency of 3 times or more than national average, which is already almost 3 times stronger today than it was in the 70s and 80s. Cheap THC gummy bears with hallucinogenic effects are advertised in the newspaper, featuring cartoon characters such as Fred Flintstone. This is very scary and saddens me to know that it is given to them by older kids, or worse, even adults. Marijuana is listed in Schedule 1 of the Controlled Substance Act, CSA, the most restrictive schedule. The Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, which administers the CSA, continues to support the placement in FDA, concurred because marijuana met the 3 criteria for placement in Schedule 1 under 21 U.S.C. 812b. Marijuana has a high potential for abuse. Furthermore, there is currently solid evidence that smoked marijuana is harmful. According to the director of Rocky Mountain State Trafficking Center, by legalizing marijuana in Colorado, we have begun the black market for about 40 other states that we can document. So instead of eliminating it, we have become it. We are also the black market for those other 21. The legalization does not just affect Colorado. The buyers from other states take it back to their home state, and as soon as they cross the state line, they are carrying illegal drugs. As New York Times writer Marie Drown noted on her experimental with a cannabis chocolate candy bar in Denver, she ended up spending 8 hours in a hallucinatory state, painting and paranoid. After hearing the 4 ways I spoke of and proof of how legalizing marijuana is affecting all states and all ages, you will agree with me that we have to take a stand, write your state representative, senator, congressman, but most of all, just say no if you have to vote on it. We have a moral and ethical obligation to protect our society and our children.